One of the features of the Buddha's teachings on the aggregates that makes you stop and think is the role of fabrication. On the one hand, fabrication, which the Buddha defines as intention, is one of the aggregates. Basically, your intention is to fabricate thoughts. You start with perceptions of things, feelings about things, and then you make comments on them. Of course, you have a purpose in doing this. You may not be all that clear in your purpose, but the mind is always heading in a certain direction. That's the nature of fabrication. But then fabrication also covers all five of the aggregates. All five are fabricated. When the Buddha defines the aggregates in terms of verbs, he says with fabrication, we fabricate form for the sake of formness. We fabricate feeling for the sake of feelingness. Perceptions for the sake of perceptionhood, I guess you'd say. Consciousness for the sake of consciousnessness. It's a weird grammatical construction in Pali, which is why it sounds strange in English. But the basic message is that we have these raw materials coming from our past karma for certain forms and feelings, perceptions, etc. We choose the ones we want to focus on and want to pay attention to, and we turn them into the actual experience of an aggregate. So we're playing a very intentional and purposeful role in our engagement with these things. In fact, with our engagement of all our senses. It's not the case that we're just sitting here being bombarded by the input from the senses. We're consciously shaping things. If it weren't for our movement toward the senses, we wouldn't experience them. This is what the Buddha discovered the night of his awakening. When there's no intention in the present moment, there was no present moment. It's our intention that causes these things to be experienced. So we play a role. And often we are very little aware of that role. Like the children who blame their parents for their being born. Why did you impose life on me? That's the attitude they have. They've forgotten how much they wanted to be born as they came into the womb. In the same way, we forget how much we are pursuing sight, sound, smells, taste, tactile sensations, activities of form, feeling, perception, fabrication, consciousness. We're doing this with intentional purpose. As I said, though, we're often very murky about what those intentions are. This is one of the reasons why we meditate. We set up the intention to stay with one object that you find comfortable to stay with. Some people find the breath is very comfortable, and it's because you can adjust it. Other people find that they have trouble adjusting the breath in a way that feels comfortable. So you choose another one of the topics that the Buddha recommends. Brahma Viharas, contemplation of the body, recollection of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, anything that gives rise to a sense of enjoyment in being here. Because you're going to be doing some serious work. But you don't want to be too grim about it. And you don't want to be defeated by the fact that the job is a large job. After all, we've been amassing our defilements for how long? How many aeons? We have no idea. But he said you can't trace back to the point where ignorance began. The beginning is inconceivable. Not just unknowable, inconceivable. So we've been building bad habits for a long time. So we should take it as a good sport. There's large work to be done. But it turns out we don't have to go back and undo all those aeons. What we have to do is see what we're doing right now to maintain this process. As the Buddha said, it's the 5 hindrances that keep ignorance going. So we work on those 5 hindrances. And concentration is the means. They often talk about how you have to get rid of the 5 hindrances first and then get the mind concentrated. Actually, it's in the process of trying to get the mind to settle down that you run into these hindrances as hindrances. Otherwise, they just slosh around in the mind without you really being aware of them. They come up, usually when they're in strong form. That's when you're aware. But so You need to get the mind as quiet as you can, and then you'll see the more subtle forms, because they're a lot easier to deal with when they're subtle. That's when we're most complacent about them. That word complacent, pamada. It's the opposite of heedfulness, which is the ideal attitude we should have. In Thai, when they adopt the word pramada into Thai, pramad, it can also mean that you underestimate things. You say, don't pramad this person. In other words, don't underestimate this person. This person is potentially dangerous or potentially really important. So we have to learn how to get the mind as still as we can. And then notice there are going to be little things nibbling away at that stillness. Don't underestimate those little things. That's what we're here to see. And don't get discouraged by them. The fact that you're here with this purpose means you're heading in the right direction. Your intentions are heading in the right direction. Now you're dealing with things you may not want to have to deal with, but that's part of the job. Dealing with cleaning up the mess you've made and having a good attitude toward it. And Ajahn Suwat tells us of the time when he was staying with Ajahn Mun. He was a young monk at the time. He told me that he had studied with Ajahn Fun first. And Ajahn Fun kept saying, you've got to go and stay with Ajahn Mun. And Ajahn Suwat said, well, aren't all meditation monks all the same? But finally he followed Ajahn Fun's advice and discovered that no, Ajahn Mun was a lot stronger presence. He felt quite intimidated by him, but also inspired. One day he happened to find himself one-on-one with Ajahn Mun. So, at a loss for words, he said, did you sleep well last night? And Ajahn Mun said, for people who have jhana, there's no question about sleeping well. It's no problem. Then Ajahn Mun asked him, how was your meditation? And Ajahn Suwat said truthfully, I just see a lot of defilements coming up. And Ajahn Mun said, well, that's part of the practice of mindfulness. Knowing when a hindrance has arisen, knowing that it's arisen. When a hindrance passes away, knowing that it's passed away. So Ajahn Suwat was wise enough not to let that praise go to his head. It was anything really good about what he was doing, or the fact that the hindrances were arising. But what was good was that he was trying to be mindful of it and not give in to the hindrances. That's the important thing. So maintain that intention, that you're here to figure things out. And don't let other intentions come in and take its place. Because this is how you deal with those unskillful intentions, those unskillful potentials. Make a strong intention to do something good. In the beginning, you want to understand them. Understanding them requires that you get the mind as still as you can to notice them. So that's a double intention. Stillness for the sake of understanding, which requires not just stillness. I mean, if you want to be still, you can go to sleep. You want to be still and alert, so you can see these things. And watch out for the little things. And you're happy that you're able to notice the little things. There's so many people in the world who have no time at all, no opportunity to clean out their minds. Here you've got this opportunity right now. So you want to make the most of it. Otherwise, those little things turn into big things. And they're harder and harder to deal with. And a lot of people are in a position where they don't really care about dealing with them. They've got other issues that they think are more important. At least you've got your priorities straight in coming here. That the big problem in your life is your mind out of control. You want to bring it in under your control, in a wise way, not in a control-freak way. Show some wisdom in your practice. Show some discernment. We all have some discernment. It's just a matter of putting it to use. And as you put it to use, it begins to grow. It's like a muscle that you haven't used very much. It's there. But if you exercise it, it gets stronger and stronger. So whatever the issues you're dealing with, whether they're large or small, whether you feel good about yourself, seeing that you have certain tendencies in your mind, or don't feel good about yourself, put that aside. Just know this is an issue in getting the mind to settle down. And if this is what has to be dealt with, this is what has to be dealt with. because your basic intention is right. Now, there may be some doubts in the mind, but you want to hold to this intention, make it stronger. And you make it stronger by sticking with it. We're not asking you to come here with a totally pure intention, but make the intention to train your mind, the dominant intention. And just give it more and more attention, give it more and more time, more and more space in your life. It's going to grow stronger. It's going to squeeze those other intentions out. First, by making them clear that they're there. You're not going to be able to deal with your defilements without seeing them. And it may be unpleasant to see them, but you're seeing them with this purpose. If you don't see them with this purpose, they'll take over. They become the intentions that are dominant. Because the mind is always dealing with intentions. Without intentions, as I said, there would be no experience in the present moment. No time, no space. So as long as you're intending, hold on to the best intentions you can find. Start out with the ones that you see are good, and then begin to notice you act on good intentions. Sometimes the results are good, sometimes they're not so good, which means they're not yet skillful. Trying to figure out what went wrong. And we get back to that old theme of commitment and reflection. You do your best, and then when your best is not good enough, you reflect on why. When it is good enough, you remember it. If you figure out why at times when it's not good, it's not working, then the next time around that intention will be trained, more informed, closer and closer to skillful. This takes patience, but the kind of patience not where you're just waiting for things to happen, but when you keep working on things again and again and again, and learning to energize yourself so you're happy to be working on these things. This is good work. You may not be able to straighten out the world, but you can straighten out your own mind. That's where you're responsible. That's where you are potentially capable. So let that thought lift your spirits and keep you on the path.